Okay, so you've got your old cars. They come with vapor barriers installed behind the door panels, and they're usually destroyed after like 10 years, 15 years. This car is 20 years old. The entire plastic vapor barrier in here was wrecked. I ripped it all off. It's not worth keeping. Let's go ahead and replace it the quickest and cheapest way possible. And it's really effective as well. You need a bottle cap, some brake clean, a rag. And what we're going to do is first, we're going to take some of the brake clean and we're just going to get it on there. Don't spray it directly. You don't want to spray anything liquid around electronics. Spray it on your rag and just dab it on there so that it starts eating away. Alternatively, you can use a heat gun and heat it up. I found that brake clean works pretty well. And then you just take your bottle cap, and as you can see, when you scrape it, it just collects in the bottle cap. Okay, now we're gonna come back around and do this a couple of times. The other thing that we'll need to do is, because there's a little crevice where this tape goes in, it kind of has gone into the groove. Maybe this won't work the best, but what I found is once it's clumped up in here, it's easy to take out as one big chunk. Then we'll come back and then we'll take a smaller pry tool and start cleaning up the inside of the groove. Okay, although that doesn't look appetizing, I've got most of it off with that cap. I'm gonna take this little plastic scraper and just try to get inside the grooves and just get all of this remaining glue or residue off as much as I can in clumps, because the more you can get off in clumps, the better. So we'll do that. We'll be right back. Okay, so as much as I can get off with the plastic tool, I have done now. And the next thing is I'm going to take the brake clean, spray it on my rag, and start wiping all the rest of the residue off. Clean up all the contact points for the new butyl tape to go on. Okay, so once you have all the old residue glue cleaned up, now it's really hard to get 100% of it off. You know, I can't really get inside some of this, but I did my best, took my time. My rag is disgusting now, but the reason why I use brake clean is it dries up really quickly, so I'm not worried about any moisture being on here when I go ahead and apply the new roll of butyl tape. So let's start with that now. And so what I got is a vent insulation kit. Now, if you don't really need this kit, obviously the main thing is I just needed the butyl tape. It is very effective in blocking out moisture. Hence why, the manufacturers used this back in the day. But if you can just get butyl tape from your local hardware store or auto parts store, grab that. We're just gonna go ahead and unroll this and start applying this around. The good thing is this car has exactly where it needs to go, basically etched out. So we'll follow that line, start applying this. And we'll work in little sections like this where as much as I can, I'll keep it straight. But if I need to curve it with this wrapper or this exterior skin on, obviously it won't curve, but the minute you pull it off, you can then flex and bend the tape in the direction you need to put it on. So we'll just continue with that. Okay, so now I have it all applied. I left the backing on just so that I can quickly push it in without, putting any residue onto the tape itself. This allows me to push on the tape and make sure it adheres properly to the door skin. Now, keep in mind, if your door is frozen cold, this won't stick well. Make sure your garage is warm or your area that you're working on is warm. Otherwise, use a heat gun or something to heat up the door, and that way it tacks on nicely. Just make sure you go around and push it all on. Like here, see, I missed a spot, so I make sure that it's tacked on properly. And take your time. This is the most important bit. Otherwise, your new vapor barrier won't stick. So just take your time on this piece. And you can honestly pretty easily stretch this stuff. It overlaps well. So here you can see I had some extra and I overlapped it right there. It tacks to itself really strong. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're also routing it behind certain things. So for example, in this case, this is a 2001 Integra. The door handle and the door lock actually have bars that go to the back inside the into the actual door lock actuator. So I just pulled these out just so that I could feed the tape in behind exactly the way the factory had it from before. And in this case as well, I have this power door lock control module, which I will just be unbolting to put the vapor barrier inside and then push this on top exactly the way it was installed from the factory. So with this is ready to go, we can now move on to installing our new vapor barrier. And this just might be overkill, but I have vapor barrier. It's essentially a plastic sheet. It doesn't allow moisture to go through especially with the added benefit of using butyl tape. I bought this at the local hardware store. It's obviously meant for drywalling, but it's the same and works just as well as the factory one. You can also buy a smaller roll from Amazon for much cheaper, but I had this lying around, so I thought I would use it. If you have done home renovations where you pulled off a vapor barrier in your washroom or anywhere else that has moisture, you can probably repurpose it. So let's do that. Let's cut this to shape. What I've done is cut a small piece out just so that it's a bit more manageable. And what I'm going to do now is give myself about an inch or inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches of overhang. So I'm not going to go right up to the edge, because in some cases like here, I actually need to force the vapor barrier to go inside behind this. So I need some extra slack in order to make sure that that space is available. So what my plan is to make sure that I do have a bit of extra vapor barrier on top of the tape and then start tacking it on. I'm going to start doing it from the top going down. Okay, so now that I've tacked it on up here, I've also removed the screws to bring this forward such that I can then route the vapor barrier behind this. I'm also going to take off this tab temporarily to just make sure that I have it aligned perfectly, and then we can punch this right back through. So let's start with that. Okay, so the whole top is mounted on. It looks nice. The bracket that was here, in fact, I took it off because it was literally mounted on like so. I took it off because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to punch the screws right through. That's how it was installed from the factory, so I'm doing it exactly that way. On this side, as you can see, I removed this control unit. What I intend on doing is taking the control unit off its plug, feeding the plug through the vapor barrier, and then just pushing the control unit right up on top of this. Now you see, this gives me, because I left that slack, and now I can push this in and install the control unit right on top. If you need to flex this, put some heat on it, and actually it'll flex. It's very thick vapor barrier, but once you heat plastic up, it flexes, so you can actually push this in without disrupting the rest of your vapor barrier. So let's get started with that. All right, so we give it a little bit of a rough cut so that we can get this on here. We're gonna start pushing all of this down and tacking it all in place now. And then finally, we're just gonna chop off the bottom, the excess. Okay, so it's all installed, as you can see. Now, the last thing I'm gonna do is just cut little holes to get the wires out, exactly where they went from the factory. I've already cut little holes, as you can see, just so that I can mount that bracket back on. I don't have to cut a hole here to get the wires for the door handle and the window switches and all that. I've already cut a hole to get that plug out. Now I'm just going to press this in and install that power lock control unit. Okay, so all of this is mounted up, as you can see. And all we need to do is just cut little holes to get the wires through, but this was hard to flex. It's a very thick vapor barrier. I got it to flex as much as I could, but there's a little couple folds. As much as it's tacked down, that's okay. But the main portion is all tacked in nicely. So we're just going to put the door panel back on. We're going to cut little holes to get the wires through. But that's about it. You're now got a new vapor barrier installed on your car. I'm going to end it here. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. See you guys very shortly.